This podcast contains descriptions of violence against children and adult language and is not suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Suffer the Little Children, the true crime podcast giving voices back to the victims of child abuse and shining a harsh spotlight on the parents, guardians, and caretakers who silenced them. I'm your host, Laine, and this is episode 85, Henry Anderson, Part 2. In episode 84, I told you the story of a loving, joyful little boy who, despite a rocky start, suffered no lack of love throughout his short life. It's also the story of the darkness no one knew boiled just beneath one woman's polished, perfect facade, and how that darkness erupted, leaving in its wake a child murdered and a family devastated. In this episode, you'll hear my conversation with Henry's grandma, Kayla Anderson, and cousin, Sarah Lohse, who told me more about Henry's life and the circumstances surrounding his death. This is part 2 of the tragic story of Henry Anderson. Without further ado, here is my recent conversation with Henry's grandma, Kayla, and cousin, Sarah. My guests on the podcast today are Henry's grandma, Kayla, and cousin, Sarah. Thank you both so much for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
You're very welcome. I've been following Henry's story since last year, and he definitely has a piece of my heart just looking at that little face with those squishy little cheeks. He's just so adorable. So Henry was born, he had substances in his system. Did it affect him at all? Did he have any delays?
No,
good.
He didn't. He was perfectly healthy.
So he met all his milestones on time?
Yeah, even ahead of some of them.
How was he with talking and all of that stuff?
Good. He'd say his words and he knew what he wanted and he knew how to get what he wanted.
When he was born, was he put into foster care right away?
Yes, he was.
He was put in for maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks?
Outside of the family, and then he was in Kayla's care after that.
So Kayla, you had him for about 6 months?
Yeah, I suppose it was something like that, 6-7 months.
Did the family come to a decision that Kyle and Kelly would be the best place for him?
Well, it took a while for the family to come to that decision. We really didn't know what we wanted to do or how we were going to do it, just because of the fact that I'm older and I have a few health issues and I live out in the middle of nowhere.
And you own your own business.
And I own my own business. And it was like, okay, what do I do? Do I bring him to this environment? I always felt back in the bottom of my mind, it was like, he starts kindergarten and then I'm going to be the old grandma that's always coming to this stuff. And, I thought that's not really fair to Henry, have someone younger. And there were family members that were open to helping out. I called around for daycare. There was nobody that would be able to help me with daycare I would talk to my family about all this, and they kind of decided to get together and see if any other family members were able to help a little more.
Yeah, we had a family group decision-making set up through the county.
So they did that sort of like a mediation sort of thing.
Yep. So we had, me and my husband were there. Kayla was there, my parents, who's Kayla's sister, and her husband, Kelly and Kyle, Kyle's brother and his wife, a family friend. I think probably 15 of us, Kayla, would you say that?
Yeah.
So there was definitely no shortage of people who wanted to help. And Kyle and Kelly had their own daughter already, and I suppose she got along quite well with Henry.
They did. They played so cute together.
Now, I know that everything seemed fine at first. Did you guys have any idea that there was anything off?
when they would bring him to me or I would go and get him for the weekend or whatever, there was a couple times he had some little bruises on his face or on his belly, like pokes or whatever. And I'm like, what is this? And I would ask Kelly about it. And she'd say it happened at daycare. Those kids over there are rough. And I'm like, yeah, I can understand that. I know how kids are. And then I had told Kelly at one time after having a conversation like that with her, again, I said, maybe we should look for some different daycare. And she's like, no, this daycare is wonderful and they're good and it's all good. And I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, she knows more about it than I do.
So everything just seemed fine. She had explanations for everything.
Right. We had no reason not to believe and trust her.
Yeah.
We were on a family group message and she would send updates and they'd be so detailed and full of love. They would be like, oh, Henry fits so well into our family. He's our missing piece. All the stuff that we were like, this is where he needs to be.
Yeah, because I wasn't restricted from seeing him whenever I wanted, or any of us. There was no restrictions on that. We could have seen him anytime. It wasn't like we just dumped him off and he was there.
Yeah.
So we had Henry, he would stay with us a few weekends here and there when Kayla had him, just so that Kayla could focus on herself and her business. And we absolutely fell in love with him. My daughter and him had such an awesome bond.
It was so hard not to just fall in love with that little thing. He's just the cutest, the funniest. He would do just funny things. Totally an adorable baby.
Perfect little boy.
Yeah, he was. He is.
Oh, that's for sure.
Okay, we were talking about Henry and the daycare. And then after that, there was the incident with a butt wipe.
Yeah. So from what Kelly told me was that she was working from home that day and he was playing and got really quiet. And she went and, turned around and he had a butt wipe in his mouth and she tried to get it out and he just sucked it in. And she called 911 and eventually they got it out. She made it sound like it was a complete accident. As far as I know, none of the doctors ruled it to be anything more than an accident. And that was about a month before he died.
What do you think happened there?
I don't know, because Kelly had said that when her daughter was a little bit younger, it happened to at a Target parking lot where got into the butt wipes and sucked it in and had to get that out of his throat. What do I think happened there? I don't know, because Henry was kind of a picky little eater. He loved Lucky Charms, but he only liked the marshmallows, and I had to pick marshmallows out for him to eat, so the other ones weren't on his tray. So I can't imagine that putting a butt wipe with that flavor, that, that wet, almost alcohol, you know what I'm talking about. Taste buds aren't going to like that.
No, it's very strange.
So
I've
I
never
can't imagine he would shove a butt wipe down his own throat. No. But you have to understand, too, this is when COVID was first hitting. So when Henry was in the hospital up there in Fargo for the butt wipe incident, I wasn't even allowed to go up there.
That must have been hard.
Yeah, it was. It was just either Kelly or Kyle. They both couldn't be in the room. I mean, they were strict on there when it first came out.
Now, Henry was still going to daycare at that point?
Yep.
So they hadn't shut that all down. As far as Kelly goes, did you guys have a good relationship with her, or how did you feel about her to begin with?
I had known Kelly. She used to live in Wendell, where I have my bar, and she was engaged to another man there, a very nice guy. And that's when Kelly was going to school and doing her nursing studies. So I didn't see Kelly a whole lot. I mean, she wouldn't come down and drink. She'd come down and maybe have supper once in a while. She was very nice. I got along with her. She very friendly, just kind of had known her, knew her grandparents, knew her other family members from being in a small community. And then her and her fiance had broken up. And then her and my cousin Kyle had hooked up. I think they had gone to school together in Underwood and fell in love, I guess, and got married.
She was definitely not new to the family. That's
No,
Nope,
she
not at
wasn't new
all.
to the family.
no, it's just so out of the blue. And I can only imagine it must have just been such a shock.
All she would have had to do is say, I can't do it. I mean, she wouldn't have even had to say that. I mean, just here, you know?
Right.
Any one of us would have went and gotten him in a heartbeat.
Of course. And it's so hard to imagine that someone who seems stable or seems like they've got it all together, definitely puts on that front, has this dark side that no one can even imagine. And she tried to say it was voluntary intoxication. So she had said she was taking drugs, but that sort of fell apart. Is that what I understand?
Yeah, from what, talking with the county attorney and law enforcement, what they were able to tell us is there was no indication that she was under the influence of drugs or alcohol at the time of her arrest. None of the doctors or nurses felt she was under the influence of anything when he was brought in. She claims that she was under the influence of narcotics when she gave her plea deal. But I don't know if there was ever any drug testing done on her at any point. If they didn't suspect it, I don't know. I would never have any indication that she was using anything.
No, me either.
And she was a nurse.
Right.
An RN, yep.
No, it just seems very odd and convenient. So it's very possible she just, her attorney came up with that idea or something. Who could disprove it that far after the fact?
Right.
Well, I'm glad she is at least away for a while. Why don't we talk about Henry a little bit and the things he liked and, the things he would do? I like to remember the kids, above all else. They certainly were little people and deserved to have their memories kept alive.
Yes, he was quite the little Henry boy. He was such a normal little boy. I mean, he loved to play toys. I had magnet toys and he loved to play with those, trying to pull them apart. And he liked elephants.
Noises.
Yeah. He made elephant noises all the time.
Oh.
So, and he just played. He was a little lover. He would give hugs and kisses and it was just so good.
My daughter would do like monkey noises at him and he would just giggle so hard from the bottom of his gut.
Oh.
Yeah, he liked to be entertained.
Oh, for sure.
Did he like certain TV shows or what were his favorite things?
Well, he was getting into, I suppose, Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, because that's always so loud when it comes on. TV would grab his attention sometimes, the cartoon stuff.
Sure.
But otherwise, I didn't really have a lot of TV going when he was around. We just played. I pretty much held him, just me and Henry. We played cars and different things on the floor, as babies do. He had a lot of Spider-Man jammies. He was kind of getting into some of those superhero stuff.
Aw. And how was he with?
Oh, he loves Sissy.
In love with her.
Yeah, they had like a lot of cute pictures together.
Yeah.
Feeling is mutual. Just absolutely adored her little brother.
Of course. Yeah. I'm so sorry to hear about her dad. I mean, she's had such a rough couple of years.
She has had it really tough.
Poor kid, especially at that age.
I know, but she's been a trooper. She's doing some counseling and she'll be okay. I pray to God she'll be okay.
Yeah, well, that's good. Counseling should definitely help. Does she get to see her mom?
Yeah.
That would be your daughter, Kayla?
Yeah.
Okay, how is she doing?
She's doing good.
Yeah, good.
It's been a very, very tough ride for her. And when I say good, I mean, she's doing good as far as moving away from bad things in her life.
That's good. That is excellent. Yeah, this must be just such a shock to the system.
Yeah, it's been hell.
Yeah, for everybody, no doubt.
Mm-hmm.
I know there must be just so many regrets, but nobody saw it coming. It's not something that could have been prevented, I don't think. There was one person responsible for it, and she's the one who got put away for it. So I'm glad they at least managed to do that much.
Yeah, I know. When you think of some of these stories like you do with Suffer the Little Children and you hear other stories, one of my thoughts, and it's almost a horrible thought to think, but I thought, thank God she just didn't take and bury him somewhere or
Yeah.
throw him out. We could still be looking for him today. Maybe that sounds really off the wall to say, but
No, you really do kind of have to be
there's so
grateful for
many
the small
sad
things.
stories out there. There's so many sad stories out there of these little children, innocent little babies and children, and every single one of those stories breaks my heart.
Of course. Yeah, I mean, I'm just
To
very
no end, yeah.
grateful that he had love in his life, and that's the most amazing thing. He definitely had no shortage of that. So
Not at all.
I'm so
No,
glad.
but he did when he didn't have anybody with him when he was going through what he was going through that last day.
Yeah,
And that breaks my heart.
of course. I mean, he couldn't have known what was going on or why.
No, and I'm sure he had to have been thinking, where's grandma?
Oh, yeah, it's hard to think about those sorts of things, but that's the kind of thing you hope that Kelly keeps in her mind for a very long time. It's not to wish poorly on anyone, but I sure hope it keeps her up at night.
Right. I don't know.
I know. I'm sorry. It's got to be just awful to talk about it. But I'm very glad that we did get a chance to do this and talk about Henry a little bit and who he was and keep his memory alive. I love what you guys did with the park.
Yes. I got to thank Sarah for that. She really pulled that together.
That's awesome. It looks so good. And the trees that are getting planted, that's the last thing I saw, I think.
Yep. 4 trees? 3 trees.
As far as I seen, there was 3. I do have people come into the bar and they'll be like, oh, I just came from the park with the little ones. They had so much fun down there.
Oh,
And it's like, oh,
good. That's what it's for.
That's what it's for.
And our next project there will be updating the border, which the city of Wendell is helping tremendously with as well.
Oh, good. So that's the fence around it or just?
Well, the border right now is old railroad ties and they've done their job. They're ready to be retired now. We're looking at, one of the durable plastic ones like that are at school parks type of thing.
Well, it's nice though. It's a kind of a project you can always add on to.
Right. And that's what the plan was, always to keep going with something on it.
I think it's one of the best ways to keep Henry's memory alive. It definitely keeps his name and face out there with the little plaque you have out there. And
like I said, credit goes to my niece, Sarah. Honey, you did so well. You did awesome with that at a time that was really hard to go through.
Wow.
I know. And now we have Henry's birthday's coming up on Monday.
Yeah, you would have been
3.
3. Oh my
goodness. Last year we all went out there and had cupcakes and we had balloons and stuff. So we're doing that again this year, Sarah, just so you know.
Out to the cemetery.
Yeah, I'll let you know times and stuff when I...
Sounds good.
Yeah.
I'll be there.
I know you will.
Where was he buried?
He was buried in Elbow Lake, which is 7 miles from Wendell.
Union Cemetery.
Was buried where my grandma and grandpa and my dad are buried.
He's buried right next to his great grandpa, which when we go out and visit, Henry's got toys and memorials all around him. And I had gotten a cardinal that I put on grandpa's headstone. And every time we go there, it's over at Henry's. And I always have to tell Henry, that's grandpa's.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Oh, I know.
Oh, well, that's really good. I'm glad that, he's surrounded by family and never alone. That's really nice to hear.
No, and he's always in, I think, everybody's thoughts at all times. I mean, it's constantly, oh, look at when Henry looks so cute in this, or, oh, Henry would just love this. I mean, his name obviously is going to live on forever.
Sure, of course. So many people loved him and have memories of him. That's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I appreciate you talking with me and letting me help you tell his story. Like I said, he's got a piece of my heart. Just knowing this much about his story and learning these things about him, I appreciate that. Thank you so much for sharing him with us. Huge thanks to both Sarah and Kayla for letting me help them tell baby Henry's story. I've been following it on the blog for some time, but it was an honor and a privilege to tell his story here on the podcast. I can promise his family one thing: Henry will never be forgotten. That's it for this week. Join me next week for another story. If you like the show, please follow or subscribe to Suffer the Little Children on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, Spreaker, Pandora, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, or your favorite podcast listening app. And please leave me a 5-star rating and a positive review on your favorite podcast platform. Visit the website at sufferthelittlechildrenpod.com, where you can listen to episodes or become a patron for rewards ranging from a shout-out by name on the show to bonus content and exclusive gifts. Follow the podcast on Facebook, Instagram, Tumblr, and Pinterest at Suffer the Little Children Pod, and on Twitter and TikTok at STLCPod. View photos related to today's episode on Facebook and Instagram. For more stories like the one you heard today, visit sufferthelittlechildrenblog.com. This podcast is researched, written, hosted, edited, and produced by Laine. All music for the show is licensed from audiojungle.net. Email tips, comments, questions, or case suggestions to sufferthelittlechildren.pod@gmail.com. For more information about preventing or reporting child abuse, visit childhelp.org or call your area's child abuse hotline. If you see something, say something. Until next week, bye everyone.